Hello, this is Nico again, live from East Ham, London, United Kingdom. What the hell am I doing in East Ham, London, will you ask? Well, first I was invited for a podcast that will take place tomorrow hosted by James English, very famous podcaster here, Scottish podcaster, who has a YouTube channel. So I'm doing that, but again, I'm not here to fuck spiders, and I decided to visit a grave. Which grave, will you ask? Let's find out. As you can see, East Ham is your typical London suburb. Pretty rundown if you ask me compared to other suburbs, but then again, it's London and it's competing to be the shittiest capital in Europe with Paris, so there's that. And what most people probably don't know who live here is that they are living next to the grave of Jack the Ripper. So if you haven't lived under a rock for the past year, you probably that one of this year's news concerning true crime and concerning Jack the Ripper is that a suspect has been identified through DNA. So it started with a shawl that was found next to one of the victims. There was traces of DNA that apparently matches the main suspect in the Ripper case, Aaron Kosminski. So I will tell you a bit more about Kosminski soon. It's not the first time I visit Jack the Ripper stuff. I went to an expo a couple of years ago of a famous painter called Walter Sickert, who was a prime Ripper suspect too because of the paintings that he did. They were extremely graphic paintings of sex workers, some of them dead, lying on their bed, killed by a butcher type of killer. So that was enough for people to think that it was the Ripper. But what's interesting here regarding Kosminski is that there is DNA, which means that modern science claims to have solved the case. We will see if this is true or not. We'll see. I'm not judging. Right now, I'm really close to the cemetery, so let's see first if we can film, and second if we can locate the grave. So if you ever want to visit this place, it's kind of hard to get there, honestly. It's kind of far away from everything central. It's even further than Whitechapel. To be honest, it's not really nicely populated. Looks a bit shit at times. The subway station is really far away from here by foot. And what's weird is that there's no cemetery walls. Those are the cemetery walls. The cemetery is behind this. So you have to look for the main entrance, which is around that corner here. So yeah, it's not that easy, but I guess that those people have a great view on the graveyard. There we are, the entrance to East Ham Cemetery. We'll be looking for section G now. Section G. This is where Kosminski is buried. Section G. That's the first one I see when I enter the place. So it's really not far away from the exit. If we have time, I'll do a little tour of the graveyard. Where can it be? It's a really plain cemetery. That's what I can say. So it's a Jewish cemetery for people who have not understood, because Kosminski was Jewish, Aaron Kosminski, and this is one of the few Jewish cemeteries in town, and the closest one to Whitechapel, where Kosminski lived. So we are looking for row 14. Where can it be? 26. Are we still in G? Yeah. 26. Oh, this cemetery is quite something actually. It's really cool. I didn't expect that. There's a sense of desolation here. Very creepy. 10. Okay, let's see around here. 10. That should be 12. Should be around here. Let's see. I think there is a plaque on it. I've seen a few pictures. Aha. This looks like the grave I saw online, isn't it? Let me see. Yeah, this is it. They removed the plaque. Somebody stole the plaque, it looks like. Wow, this is the resting place of Jack the Ripper according to the latest DNA finds. And this is the exact spot, I can tell you, because I have the picture. The plaque is exactly the same. The background is the same. So yeah, now it's completely anonymous. It's crazy that the plaque is not there anymore. Can we see the name on the... Yeah, I can't really tell. It's really Aaron Kosminski. That's him, Aaron. That's the name. Wow. I can't believe I found it and find it so easily. But that's because I did some research beforehand. What can I say? So maybe a little background on how this suspect was identified. As I said earlier, there was a shawl that was found next to a victim and there was DNA on it. It was linked to his granddaughter, if I'm correct, by scientists who had kept this in a vault. He had purchased the shawl from the police, from an auction. Not sure the police, just from an auction. He was a ripperologist, so fascinated by the case, and he wanted to run DNA tests on it. And yes, he found evidence that this shawl that was stained with the fluids of both the victims and the perpetrator, the Ripper. This shawl was stained by Jack the Ripper himself, which happened to have the same DNA sequence as a Kosminski relative. Some people claim that This is circumstantial evidence despite the science. So, what do I think? I think that he was a very good candidate. He knew a few things about cutting animals up, so there's that. I think he was obsessed with sex workers. There's also that. But also he died in a mental institution. I think it was in 1990. So yeah, there are several things that are indicating that this might be really Jack the Ripper, which is amazing. It's crazy to me because it's the grave of the most famous serial killer in the world, and probably one of the creepiest cemeteries I've ever seen. And it's a nice day, it's really sunny, so I can only imagine when it's cloudy and raining, and yeah, it's definitely something to be there. So I was about to leave. I was looking at around the grave, taking pictures, and I noticed something really interesting. Look at this. So it's right next to the grave. Someone got some dirt from the grave of Jack the Ripper. Wow. This reminds me of a few stories that I'm gonna tell you. The grave of a serial killer's grave dirt. What can it be used for? Let's talk about it. But first, let's say goodbye to our good friend Aaron Kosminski, and let's explore this place. So notice that the locals have a beautiful view over the graveyard and over Jack the Ripper's grave. It's very interesting. I wonder if they see things going on at night. But look at this, what a view. It's definitely something else. I found a bench, so let's talk about my little experiences with the graves of serial killers, because I'm sure that you will love to hear my stories. So it's not the first time I visit the grave of a serial killer. I went to the grave of Michel Fournier, the ogre of the Ardennes in France. So Michel Fournier died 5 years ago, sorry. And as soon as he was dead, I knew more or less where he would be buried. There was a few articles mentioning it. But the thing is, he was buried in an unmarked grave with a serial number. But I knew the place, so I went there 2 days after he was buried. So I brought my little GoPro, I did a cool video, and I spent 1 hour of my life looking for a grave that had been recently dug. And there was thousands of graves in that part of the graveyard, because this is where in Paris they bury the people who are unclaimed by their relatives. So there's thousands and thousands of people. Usually they dug up the remains after 5 years and put them in little boxes, and they put them in the local ossuary. So I went there, spent 1 hour trying to find a grave with signs of, recent inhumation, and I found it. So I copied the serial number. I wanted to wait until they put a plaque on it with at least his initials and the exact date of his death, because this is a legal requirement, even if it's an unmarked grave, and even if it's a very famous serial killer, they have to put those indications on a plaque. Then COVID struck. It was chaos. What happened was that they never put that plaque on. I went back a couple of years after, found the grave. There was nothing on it, like if nothing had happened. I knew that the body was still inside, and I know that the remains will normally be exhumed this year. Fonires' skull will be taken out of the grave and be put in a box. The box will be brought down to the ossuary like they usually do, and it will be an anonymous box among thousands and thousands of others. A serial killer next to a carpenter or a baker or a policeman or whatever, sharing the same space. That's very ironical when you think of it. But this is not my first story with the grave of a serial killer. The very first story that happened right after I was released from prison. And while I was in prison, I was writing with this guy, an extremely high-end collector, let's say. I cannot name him by name. People who are in the know who he is. People who are used to dealing with high-end objects in the murderabilia scene. They know who he is. They know what's in his collection, and they know that those objects can be seen in very famous museums, mostly in the US. Maybe even in the serial killer exhibition, who knows? But I will not develop that. So this person who I used to write with, just about a month before I was about to be released, he said, "Can you get me a phone number so I can call you 1 week after your release, after you get your bearings? I really have something important to ask you." I'm like, okay, let's do that. So I get that call from the US. First thing he says is like, okay, did you keep anything from the day you were arrested? Like, did the police seize everything, destroy everything, or did you keep anything? And I said, and that's what really happened, is that when they were doing the police search and they asked me which jacket I was wearing at the time of the murder, I showed them a jacket that I did not wear at the time of the murder, okay? And they didn't question anything, they just seized the jacket to run tests on them or whatever they do. The jacket that I actually used at the time of the murder was there in my belongings, and my family picked it up, not knowing, of course, that it had been used for that. And I got a hold of it when I was released. I had the jacket in my possession. So I'm telling this guy, this collector, okay, I have this jacket. And he says, okay, one of my friends is a rock star, okay, and he is looking for something that has been worn by a murderer at the time of the murder, so that he can use it and he can wear it in his next video. I'm like, okay, who is this? And he says, his name is Jonathan Davis. I'm like, Jonathan who? Who's that? I said, oh, it's a famous band in the US called Korn. And I'm like, yeah, Korn, yeah, I know Korn. And I'm like, but does he collect that kind of stuff? And he says, yeah, he's a collector. He collects plenty of stuff, and we are actually associated on the next Ozfest tour, and we will tour the US with the Ted Bundy car and the Pogo the Clown outfits. I'm like, wow. I knew that this guy owned them, so I wasn't surprised, but I was like, wow, that's cool. Okay. So to make a long story short, the jacket, finally the guy Jonathan Davis wasn't interested into getting it, but I got to meet him several times after when he was on tour in Europe, so that's another story. And there, the fallout between this collector and Jonathan Davis. Davis kept the car, the Bundy car, for a while. It's even in an episode of not sure if it's Pimp My Ride, MTV Pimp My Ride, or Cribs, one of those two, where he shows his collection, and there's the Ted Bundy car. You can easily find it online. Anyways, second part of the story. I'm still on the phone with that guy, this collector. And he says, okay, Nico, now this is the real reason why I want to call you. So you can tell me that your phone is not wired. Like, no, not that I know. No, I didn't hear anything weird or anything. It's a safe line. So he says, okay, I'm gonna ask you something. Just, I understand if the thing I'm gonna ask you is too much because you're just released, and that might put you in a position that might be difficult for you. But I have a business proposal to make to you. I'm like, okay, I'm all ears. He says, okay, do you know Karl Denke? The name sounded vaguely familiar. Okay, I knew that he was a Polish serial killer, German Polish serial killer in Silesia, that he killed people and used their meat to sell at the local meat markets. That's what I knew. And he goes, okay, I located the grave of Karl Denke. It's in Poland, in Silesia. Now, what I want to ask you, and there's a lot of money to be made, and he gave me a number. I want you to go there, dig up his skull, and ship it to the US. So at first I was like, what? Are you kidding? Is this like some kind of candid camera or what? I'm like, what? And he said, no, I'm dead serious. Pun intended. I'm dead serious. This is something I want you to do. Just tell me if that's something that's that's something that you could do. In the back of my mind, I like so many questions. Why Denke first? Denke is not really well known. I don't know many collectors who would spend thousands and thousands of dollars to get the skull of Denke. I really didn't see the point. Why Denke of all serial killers? So I tell him, okay, I'm gonna think about it. Give me a few days. I'll give you an answer. So I hung up. Then I started to think. I had many things going on back then. I had to go to Sweden. I had so many things to do. Plus, I didn't really see myself going to Poland, buying a shovel or whatever, digging a fucking grave in the middle of the night and getting arrested by the Polish police and spend I don't know how many years in a polished cell. Now, that wasn't something that was worth it. I mean, the offering was tempting in a way, and it would have been funny. I know, not funny for you, but it's the kind of things that make me laugh, you know. And just, you know, as the fact of telling this story in the middle of Jewish graveyard, this is funny. Anyways, let's get focused on my story. I decided no. So I called him back a few days later. I told him, sorry, but it's a bit too risky, man. Can't do it. Maybe in a few years, I don't know. I have to think. Okay. So we continued to talk for a few months. I met Jonathan Davis in Sweden. He was interested in getting stuff, but I don't know why he and this collector had a big fallout. I think it was over the Ozfest thing. Ah, this is cool. This is Star David made with bricks. That's very cool, actually. I'm gonna take a photo. So yeah, back to my story. I said no, but at the same time I was like, wow, why Denke? So I did my own investigation, okay, because I had many friends in common with that guy. I asked them a few questions. Of course, I didn't mention the fact that he asked me to get the skull of Karl Denke, because I didn't want to rat on him. And by the way, I'm not ratting on him, because I'm not giving his name or anything. If he sees this video, he'd be like, yeah, that was like 20 years ago. But yeah, anyways. But I asked associates of him if he had mentioned anything about getting a famous car of someone, and they all came up with the same name: Ed Gein. Yes, you've heard it right, Ed Gein. That was his main focus. So, you know, I think a lot about those things. I think this Karl Denke story was just a warm-up. It was just a warm-up for something bigger than that. Maybe he wanted to test me if I accepted this thing and sent him the skull of Karl Denke. And I think the next step would have been to commission me the grave robbery of Ed Gein's grave. So for those who know a bit about the story behind Gein's grave, his tombstone was raided, vandalized and stolen a few times actually, but that was just the gravestone. Gein's remains are still there between his mother and his father, I think, but right next to his mother, not far away from one of his one of the victims of his grave robberies. Actually, you can actually see a short clip of that at the end of the Ed Gein show on Netflix. But yeah, what's very intriguing is that this guy, obsessed with having, wow, what have you look, obsessed with having Ed Gein's skull, asking me if I could bring him the skull of Karl Denke. You know, you don't have to be a rocket scientist to imagine what would have been the next business proposal. I'm pretty sure it would have been for an even higher price than he mentioned. on during our phone conversation. So that's my little serial killer graveyard stories. I hope you like them. They're the right place to tell them. I think I mentioned that in the Gospel of Blood, my biography that I wrote many years ago. I think I mentioned that. But yeah, that's my Gein story, my Karl Denke story, and my Michel Fournier story. So I hope you like that video. The next one will take place in an occult expo called Dark Secrets, which I am going to explore in a couple of hours. Bye for now.